So if you were there for my presentation, it went very, very fast, partly because we skipped to the first 2 slides, and partly because the time limit was short. I went through in sort of very overview fashion the equity products for InvestEU, and I'm here to answer any questions you have on those products, and failing that, I will invent my own questions for the next 20 minutes. So please feel free to ask anything that's on your mind. Otherwise, I shall jump in.
Maybe I wanted to ask, I'm not sure if this is the question asked in the right forum, but as we received now the grant from Accelerator, we clearly see that we need to already search for further investment. So I saw that there is this possibility of asking for the investment from the EIF, if I'm correct. So I don't know if this is the right question here, but is there any, let's say, way how we can start the process?
So largely, sorry, I was not in the previous presentation because I had another meeting.
Yeah, so the story is that today we are in the middle of consuming the grant from Accelerator, from EIC Accelerator, but we see that the company will need further investment, and there is this possibility of getting investment from EIF, if I'm correct.
Well, not exactly. So basically, the EIF, there are ways for you to receive investment from funds that we support, but the EIF only invests in an intermediated model. So we only invest, pardon me, we only invest through other funds. So if a fund that was doing a scale up or was likely to invest in you was asking us for money, we would invest in them to facilitate investments in organizations like yours. So what you can do is on our website, eif.org, in the second column, there's this column called Information for, and the small and medium-sized enterprises. If you click on that, it takes you to a page where it lists every single fund that has received investment from us, because European transparency. So they receive money from us, their name is there. And that gives you a universe of funds that are in the right orbit to provide you with financing to whom you can approach. But EIF itself provides guarantees to lending institutions and invests in funds, and that's our only product.
Okay. Thank you.
Someone posted a question in the chat, which I will pull up. Is any of the grant schemes suitable for venture capital funds to invest in climate tech or green tech companies? Yes. So as co-financing or fund of funds, I'm not sure exactly what's meant by that, but as I said in the meeting, climate and environmental solutions is one of the sub-products under the InvestEU joint equity product. So what do I mean by that? I mean that funds investing in climate tech, green tech, mobility, any of the target areas under that, and they're all listed on our website, will find support from the European Union or from EIF in those areas. I'm just pulling up the list of target areas under climate and environmental solutions. So it's focused on funds investing in technologies that catalyze the climate transition and covers mobility and transport, energy decarbonization, sustainability, agriculture, blue economy, and other adaptation solutions. So it's pretty broad, and that's actually a shortened version. You can find it on our website. I'll put the link in the tab in the speech. So we do have a specific product for that. Now, we invest as a fund of funds. We are a fund of funds, so we invest only in funds. The co-financing does happen sometimes in very specific cases where there's an opportunity to co-finance a specific investment, but it's extremely rare and it's always fund-led. We don't do it ourselves. We are drawn into it by a fund because the opportunity is there. But I would encourage you to read the relevant part of our website. Let me bring it up so that I can show it. if I can just get the InvestEU equity products, copy, paste. That there is the appropriate part of our website for the InvestEU equity products, and at the bottom of that page, there's a link that says read more about our products. I think it says read more online, and then there's a picture of a computer screen. If you click on that, it takes you to a presentation of all of the products and sub-products that we have and how it works. And I can go into some of that now, because obviously taking money from us, there are conditions attached and reporting obligations, but I can go through some of those now if that's interesting. Any other questions? Okay, so maybe just to fill in the time as people think of other questions, I'll talk a little about that. So under the InvestEU equity product that the EIF is deploying, I'm sorry, I know that there's a terrible lighting in this place. I look like a silhouette. The growth, innovation and impact product allows us to invest in funds. The rules are that there's a lot of them, but the main ones are we invest between 7.5 and 25% of the fund if they pass due diligence and if they are appropriate for InvestEU, which means that the fund that we're investing in must be adhering to the sub-products, the thematic strategies and the target areas that we're focusing on. So we're talking about the areas I mentioned before. It has to be enabling sectors, space, defense, that sort of thing. It has to be climate and environmental solutions. It has to be any one of these or several of these. It can be under the digital transition or media. So it could be AI, it could be blockchain, it could be AI, blockchain. We do a lot of technology transfer. It can be under the social impact product, or it can be under the capital markets union product for more like lower mid-market, so larger funds investing in more advanced SMEs, and there we have pockets of money that are perhaps a little less narrowly focused, but are designed for scale-ups. Now, when you take money from us, when you apply, you have to pick one of these verticals. And so if you tell us, okay, I am a fund that invests primarily in SMEs focused on blue economy and climate and mobility, then we will give you money under the climate and environmental solutions subproduct. So let's say that you're a 50 million fund and we're giving you 15 million. Then with that 15 million will come a condition that you must invest at least twice that in SMEs in that target area. So if you say I invest in climate and environmental solutions, then we will say, okay, here's the money you get from us, 15 million in this example. That means you must invest 30 million of your funds under management over the investment period in SMEs or in investments, final recipients we call them, that are in these particular target areas. And we'll hold you to that. It'll be in the side letter. It'll be a contractual commitment. Find where we can find the local intermediaries on eif.org. So if you go to the website, eif.org, well, I'll just paste the link in, it's probably easier. It's actually the second column, information for small and medium-sized enterprises. And then on that page, there's a bit that says equity. If you're looking for investors, you can contact fund management companies in which EIF is invested, including those operating under FC equity. And if you click fund management companies, it takes you to the page I'm about to paste. A list of EIS private equity and venture capital funds can be downloaded in PDF format here. So that is on this page. So we come with conditions. Obviously, the majority of your investment of your fund, typically 67% or more, must be invested inside the EU 27. The fund must be incorporated inside the fund vehicle, must be incorporated inside the EU 27. Under some circumstances, we'll accept that some of the management team may not be in the EU 27, especially if it's, a fund with some members in the UK. But if it's a new candidate fund coming from, say, the US, we're not going to accept that a US-based fund with a US-based team has a vehicle in Europe and we give them money, that there has to be a certain European presence. We have a focus on moderate or emerging innovator countries. I mentioned that before. So funds that invest in, no matter where they're incorporated, that invest in the MEICs, which you can find online, those countries benefit from additional support from us. And so instead of investing between 7.5 and 25% of your fund, we have the ability of going up to 50%. The ability doesn't mean that we will, it just means we can. InvestEU likes, well, so we have this is public money we're investing, right? It's an EU guarantee, it's state money. And as a consequence, we can only invest where it is additional. So that means that if our failure to invest will not change anything, if the fund will exist anyway, and the investments it would make anyway without our help, then actually we're not supposed to invest. Whereas if a fund is going to have difficulty closing or raising funds or accessing certain parts of the market without our help, that's where we step in. So we like to be the cornerstone investor. In some cases, more rarely, we'll be the investor that drags you over the line so that you reach your target fund size. But we like to be the enabling factor that makes your fund possible and that makes it possible for you to invest in certain areas with a focus on the target areas, the policy challenges and the policy objectives of the European Commission that are built into the legal structure of our fund, which means that we're not allowed with InvestEU to invest in anything other than those verticals. But I think you'll see when you look online that they're very, very broad. If you intend to build, I don't know, if an SME intends to build a shoe factory, that might be a little challenging for us to invest in. But if it's something more aligned with what we do, then absolutely we can invest in it. Do we invest in first-time funds and first-time teams? The answer is absolutely yes. First-time funds and first-time teams are a particular focus. We do want those teams. In fact, it's very additional because first-time teams sometimes have a hard time raising their first fund. And as a consequence, we like to be the people that enable them to do that. The caveat I have to give you there is, well, two of them really. The first is we don't invest in inexperienced teams. So if you're a first-time fund with a first-time team, each individual on that team is expected to carry with them a certain amount of experience. And that's going to be very carefully measured, as will the setup of that team, how well suited they are to working with each other, how well distributed the equity is and the carry, whether or not we think it'll hold together. We're going to pay more attention to that to a new team because it's untested than we would to a team which has been tried and tested over 2 previous funds. The other caveat on first-time teams is that while we do want to support first-time teams where we can, the effort that we make towards them is really determined by the normal due diligence process. So we don't cut them any slack or make it easier for them to raise money. They're held to the same standard as everyone else. There's sometimes, because we're so broadly invested, there's sometimes a perception from the outside that we're a bit like a cash machine. You apply, you get money. In reality, the reason why the EIF stamp on someone's website carries some weight is because we're a tough investor, and we hold people to a high standard, and that standard is not softened just because it's a first-time team. So they will still have to be as good as an experienced team in terms of the setup of their fund, how recognizable everything is, the strength of their pipeline, and their analytical and investment capabilities.
Nicholas, may I ask a question directly? Or so I see, for example, that in Slovakia, one of the funding partners is Unicredit Bank, which is our bank. And as we are already quite some time on the market, I understand that and they offer the money through loans, which means that we are able to get loan from them. And what would be the difference from like I'm just thinking loudly, if we need a loan which is somewhere in the range of, let's say, 5 to 8 million euro, is this how this procedure happens, or is there some kind of, maybe I'm asking a little bit.
No. So no, I understand where you're coming from. So ultimately, as Astrid said during the meeting, we have received we're an InvestEU implementing partner. We guarantee loans through institutions like the like Unicredit, and when they make a loan to you, they make a loan out of a portfolio of loans where we've provided guarantees, so it's easier for them to lend. But the lending process is entirely up to them. We're an intermediated organization, so they have to run that. Now, guarantee products are not my specialty. They're my colleague Diana's specialty, and she's in room 2 or 4, I'm not sure. She'll know more about it than I do. But yes, we do provide organizations with guarantees that make it easier for them to lend and make it possible for them to lend to riskier investments or investments they wouldn't normally have had capacity for. And that's the whole point of it. That's the whole reason we do it. So the guarantee products are really Diana's specialty.
Okay. Yeah,
looking at entrepreneurial experience, M&A experience is relevant for a first-time team and a first-time fund. So yes, if the first-time team is made up of 3 investment managers, 2 of which have deep investment management experience and a third of which has strong entrepreneurial or leadership experience in organizations, that's a very good mix. But the presence of somebody with entrepreneurial experience will not be a substitute for the need for investment management experience. I've seen funds come through where the due diligence is extremely positive because we see 2 investment managers and 2 operational excellence managers, and where the incoming, sort of the original investments are all managed by the investment managers, and then the monitoring, board membership, and exits of the investments are all managed by the 2 operationally experienced people with, CEO experience, M&A experience. And that's very good because it means that you're able to complement, these people can complement each other, especially when they all share in the carry. So it's acknowledged even inside the fund that the expertise of the M&A and CEO experience is as important to the fund's success as the investment management, because it shows a clear strategy and it's well thought through. But the absence of investment management experience, i.e. people who are experienced in measuring business models, assessing investments, and have made them and have seen how they pan out in the past, is going to be a limiting factor. It's going to be a challenge. And the advisory services will inform you and will help you beef up your team, not by suggesting individuals, we would never go that far, but by giving you an example of the kind of profiles you would need, which was basically going to be somebody with investment management experience in your field of expertise, like, I know, blue economy or climate and infrastructure. So it's never going to be a substitute is my answer, but it is considered additive. It's valuable.
So Nicholas, a quick question on that. When you look at the track record, I have a lot of experience in M&A, for example, in a transaction. So making transactions, buying companies, selling companies, growing companies. But since I work for corporate most of my life, we buy to hold and to keep. But sometimes you want to sell as well, and then you sell it. But I don't have an experience where you buy, you hold for 5 years, and you sell exactly the same, company. So in that sense, often you don't have a continuity of the investments where you can say, okay, I created 5 times, value. How is that looked at as a track record?
So, I mean, I'm not on the investment assessment due diligence side of things. I manage the mandate vis-a-vis the commission. So I can give you a rough idea, but you'd have to talk to our investment teams to get a very precise analysis. I think that the few messages I would pass to you are, one, it's always on a case-by-case basis. There isn't a template we seek to match people to. There isn't a test or a threshold. We look at the team and we decide whether or not this team has the experience, the background, the pipeline, the network, and the industry knowledge to find, sort of assess, diligence potential investments, pick investments out of the pool of possible investments that they have that are good, invest in them, manage that investment over time, and then exit them successfully. And all of those things are going to be looked at. To give you an idea of pipeline, I mean, there's a rough rule of thumb in the industry, which isn't necessarily internal to us, that you're going to be looking at 50 to 100 potential investments for every investment you actually make. So you need a due diligence machine built inside your fund. You need people with an ability to assess opportunities very quickly. If you're the sort of fund who's going to be looking at 4 investments and you're going to make 1 and then another 4 make another 1, the chances of you're looking at enough different investments to be able to make good decisions and have the right, you're basically picking up what other people haven't invested in. That's not going to be good enough. And so we look at the staffing of a fund with a view to seeing whether or not they have the capacity to do the assessments they need to make. So three very experienced individuals in assessing companies. They have the necessary industry experience to make that assessment. And then we are going to look at track record in terms of how successfully have they selected and managed those investments in the past. Now, does that mean you need to prove you can exit? You as an individual, no, but you as a team, probably. You need to prove that you have an ability to manage the exit process, be it through a private sale or an IPO or whatever. Now, IPOs would be perfect for us. We're really trying very hard to push the IPO market in Europe, but exits in any measure is good. We're looking, think about it from our point of view. We're not trying to make money in the EIF. We're trying to provide the opportunity for European companies to grow, and we're doing it through third parties, through financial intermediaries, either banks or in my case funds. So we're picking funds that have the ability to take small companies and turn them into bigger companies and then set them on a path to growth and success and competitiveness. And we do it to reinforce Europe's competitive fabric and ecosystem. So we're very keen to find the right funds that can do that, but we're very selective in making sure the funds we do choose have all the right staff and knowledge and access and pipeline to do that successfully with the money that we entrust to them. Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, thank you.
Nicholas, could you please put the contact to your colleague who can provide us more information about the guarantee?
Diana Petrescu, yes, hang on.
Diana, yes.
Yes.
I just maybe email or something.
I can, let me just see where the...
maybe a link where I can find official contact to her.
So I don't know if there's a contact for her, but so this is the, oh, that didn't work at all. Oh, well, there you go. Thank you. So she's in that room. I was trying to do that. So if you go to that room, she's actually talking in there now. As for her name, it's Diana Petrescu, and you may be able to find her on LinkedIn.
Okay.
As a policy, I'm not going to hand out another colleague's email unless she says that I can. I don't know that she'd have a problem with that, but I will let her choose. But she's in that room talking right now if you want to ask her a question.
Okay, I will go to this room.
Fantastic. Nice to speak to you, Master.
Nice to see
you. May I ask a question? Here is Miroslav speaking.
Sure.
I took a look on the page where you present the partners in Slovakia, and there is no one for equity in Slovakia. Does it mean that the information is not updated, or there is no local equity intermediary for your funds?
That's a good question. I'm just looking at it now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so many of them are called multi-country, and if you find, you may find that some of them are basically, covering several Eastern European countries, and that happens quite a lot when, or Central European countries. That happens quite a lot when the countries have small enough markets that the funds need to spread over several markets in order to have enough pipeline to be successful. So my guess is that what you'll find is there may be some based in Slovakia that are operating across border, and maybe some in your neighboring countries that are also focused on Slovakia. But that I wouldn't say that means that there aren't any in the country. I think it means that in terms of investment potential, it's got a reasonably small potential pipeline when you narrow it down to a single industry like life sciences. And so these funds are all labeled as multi-country. It would be impossible for there to be no funds focusing on Slovakia. That's definitely not the case.
Yeah, thank you.
I can't say that I look at this list very often. I'm much more focused on the investments currently happening than on the historical investments. Right. Any more questions? Or should I make some up? So something that may be worth pointing out is that when you go to the EIF website to apply, assuming that you are a financial intermediary wishing to apply, you go to the link I gave earlier, which is the InvestEU equity products. You can see the words InvestEU equity products on our front page as well if you're looking for it. And at the bottom of that page, there is an InvestEU equity online application. Even if you're already in process with us through some other form of application, so you're already talking to someone here, if the InvestEU product is likely to be the source of funds for our investment in your fund, then at some point the person you're in touch with will ask you to fill out this form because we need it. It contains all the necessary information received in a GDPR compliant manner to allow us to initiate an application under InvestEU. If you go through that, you won't send us anything, and we will not even know that you've looked at it until you hit submit right at the very end. So if you flick through it, you can see the kind of information we need. And you'll notice as you go through it that it does require a certain understanding of the product in order to fill it out. When it asks you, are you applying for funds under the IPO product, it really helps if you know what that product is and what it does. The same thing for Escalar. If you apply for funds under the climate and infrastructure window or anything that is climate oriented, then it helps if you know or if you've examined at least the 2 pages that we have inside the term sheet about what your reporting obligations will be, and the fact that you need to give us a CA&DS objective before you, climate and environmental sustainability objective before you receive money from us, and at the very beginning of your application even, so that we know what proportion of your fund will be invested in things that impact these areas of critical importance. So it helps if you do read through some of it. My suggested order of reading is that you start with the bit that says read more online, and you can also go straight to it by going to this link here. So that's the presentation of InvestEU, and its narrative. It's written by our marketing department, who are much better than I am at writing these easily understandable documents. Then once you've read that and you think you've understood the structure, you can come back to the front page, to the InvestEU page, and you'll see at the bottom, just above that link, there's documents for the InvestEU equity product, the call for expression of interest, and then a number of annexes. And those annexes contain it's not exactly a legal contract, but a list of terms that are likely to be, or that will be, included in any side letter associated to any investment from us. It's important you understand these terms. They include things like what we call the minimum target allocation, which is what I was mentioning earlier, the minimum amount you will be required to invest in areas that are aligned with the thematic of the funds that you've requested from us. So if you're in the blue economy and you say you want money from the blue economy pocket, then you're going to have to invest twice the money we give you. So if we give you 10 million out of a 50 million fund, you'll have to invest 20 in that particular pocket. It's easy if you're a fund that's entirely focused. If you're a generalist fund, you have to think a little before you decide. Although the truth is, nothing that you write here is completely binding in your application. The investment teams will discuss with you and orient the application and refine it as you go forward. The Escalar and IPO products are very targeted towards specific kinds of funds, as is the senior private credit product, which is for hybrid debt equity loan funds and that sort of thing, and debt funds. And then it's good to understand the reporting requirements that you'll be held to, because the InvestEU product has, as the Commission is very keen on understanding how it's impacting the European ecosystem, it has a certain number of reporting requirements that we are forced to transmit to you, and that we are forced to report back up to the Commission, and hence there are templates to fill out, and they are significant. They're not completely unreasonable, but they are reasonably complete, and they require you to know what they are before you engage. So I would suggest that you look at it. It costs very little time to begin to get an understanding, because there is an enormous amount of money available through this process if you are aligned with the policy goals that we are trying to support. And in particular in your geography, we are very keen to support venture funds in this area in order to help the ecosystem there grow. any further questions? Very well. Well, it's 1:15, so I shan't hold you any further. This was the time allotted for the Q&A. I will put my email in the box. And should you have any questions, you're welcome to write to me. Thank you very much indeed, and I wish you all a very good afternoon. Thank you.